Welcome back to Cottage Designs by Erin, where today we're going to be talking about how to embroider quilts like the one behind me. Before I even get to that, I just want to take a minute to thank all of my viewers and subscribers. You guys are awesome. That last video that I posted on how to upcycle old linens has been off the charts. I had no idea that it would be such a huge hit, but because of your generous comments and the fact that you like the video so much, I'm finally going to be monetized on YouTube. I'm super excited about that because now I'll have a little bit of money to do more with you and offer more ideas and more videos. It's pretty exciting. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. I have been a needle woman, I'd say, since probably the early 90s. When my daughter was small, I was divorced at a very young age. I was divorced by the time I was 24 years old, and I've never been remarried. And so when she was little, I did not have money to buy a sewing machine. I didn't get my first sewing machine until she was 5 years old. But she said, "Mom, you know, when I was little, I went to sleep to the sound of the sewing machine, and I woke up to the sound of the sewing machine." And it's just, it's just been my whole life. Creativity, once I was on my own, became my whole life. As a child, I was creative, but my mother didn't know how to do anything. She was an excellent cook, but she couldn't sew, she couldn't embroider, she couldn't crochet, she couldn't knit. She had no sewing abilities whatsoever. So to pacify my need to be creative, she would buy me oil painting sets. I'd paint by water, color by number. You know, I was always all about color. And my grandmas both had sewing abilities, but sadly they passed away before they were able to pass any of that on to me. So long story short, when I was in high school, I took a home ec class, and I only got to take it for a semester. So that got me up and running. And then from that point forward, until I was in my 20s, I started studying everything I could possibly study about sewing, any possible article. And I don't know, it's an endless possibility. You know, I love Emily Dickinson, and I love her quote, "I dwell in possibility," because there's just so much you can do if you put your mind to it. You know, my online business is doing really well. People have made fun of me for that. What, you're the crazy cat lady and the crazy doll lady? Oh, you just got these dolls around your house. What kind of weirdo are you? Okay, so maybe I'm different. That's okay. I'm fine with it. I am exactly the way God made me. If He wants me to have these interests, I take pride in the fact that He has given me abilities to make things with my hands. I didn't know when I was younger and I made things. I thought everybody could do that. And then finally it dawned on me one day, hey, Erin, everybody can't do what you do. And I had to apologize to God and say, I am so sorry that I took the gifts you gave me so lightly. That was wrong. That was wrong of me. And so since that time, I have passed on my sewing abilities through various organizations. I do charity work. I've taught sewing classes. I've taught my students, my special education students, I've taught them how to embroider. As the years go on here, it doesn't go over well because it seems like these younger kids do not have the tenacity or interest in it. You know, they don't want to stay the course. They do it for a couple minutes and then they're done. So anyhow, thank you for helping me get monetized for doing what I love. All right, now we are going to talk about the quilt behind me. This is kind of a big deal. I made this when I was, let me see, I've got the date on it. How old was I? Oh, I have everything but the date on it. Oh, 2005. Okay, so I was 35 years old. I was going to say early 30s. And this is a package, not a kit, but all you get is the actual quilt, and then you do with it what you want. So let me show you. This is a quilt by Jack Dempsey. Let me get in here. Wall quilt by Jack Dempsey. You can still buy this. I looked this morning because as a person that watches YouTube, I would not want to see a project and then not be able to make it because it's so old and outdated that you don't have access to it. Ding, ding, ding. So I checked this morning. Here is the seller, GR Perks, and this is $12.67 on eBay. GR Perks is the seller for this. All right, so what you're going to get, all you get is this little package with the quilt in it. Clearly, when you get it, it doesn't look like the finished product, okay? So let's open it up. You never, ever, ever want to wash this first because these blue lines are disappearing ink. So meaning after you embroider it and then you wash it, it will disappear. So you don't want to get it wet. All right, you have to take very good care of it. Okay, so before we go into how you actually make it, I worked on this for years. Okay, it probably took me a year to do all of it. I did all the cross stitch first, and then I went around each block. I started finishing each block at a time. This block, I did a stem stitch and a satin stitch for the flowers. And then I just had all kinds of buttons, and I went and I sewed the buttons on. Okay, so let me take this down and show it to you. I am laughing about that last video. Had I have known that, it was going to have so many views, I probably would not have had my pajamas on. I had on pajama bottoms and a t-shirt because it was a snow day. And I was just doing what I do on snow days, okay? So I'll try to look better from now on. All right, so let me get this up close. So here are the blocks. Okay, we have this star, a wreath, which I used a big heavy satin stitch on, which, you don't have to do it that way. Do it any way you want. These buttons on this star block are super special to me. My grandmother, that I dearly loved, my father's mother, she went to a home extension and did crafts. It was up the street from her house. And she made me a button necklace when I was a little girl out of these pink buttons. And I loved it so much because I love pink, as we all know. And so anyway, I put her buttons on here. So now, let me read you the tag at the bottom of this. It says, Embroidery Bead Button Work by Erin Zenzaletta Pennington. That's me. This was hand quilted by a lady named Lorraine Fields. She was 90 years old and she was in the nursing home at the time that she hand quilted this for me. This was her last quilt and my first embroidered quilt. This quilt top was purchased pre-printed at Ben Franklin Crafts in Marion, Illinois for $8. I started embroidering the top in 1996 when my daughter Taylor was 3 years old. The quilt was stored for years and finished in the spring of 2005. The buttons in the upper right-hand corner belonged to my grandmother, Damascella Zenzaletta. The buttons were part of a button necklace she made me when I was about 9 years old. I always loved the pink and silver combination. Other buttons on this quilt came from clothing and estate sales. This won first place at our local fair in 2005. All right, now, the center block. It is all embroidered, and then I wanted it to look dimensional, and so I sewed on plastic beads to make it look like a wedding ring. Okay, and then here's some other buttons. I have, just all kinds of things on here. All right, so now the question is, how do we make something like this? So I told you, you order the quilt itself, and then you will need very minimal supplies. Let me hang this back up. All right, now I'm going to reach down on the floor and pick up a hat box. Oh, and that is the wrong one, wouldn't you know? Hold on one second. Okay, I have it. Look at this enormous thing. Huge, huge, huge. I have embroidery floss in here and hoops. So let me take the lid off this. It's a feast for the eyes. I also have old projects in here. Project, different types of hoops. I've got floss stuck on there. Okay, now let me show you this. Look at all this glorious floss. Okay, so when my daughter was small, because I couldn't afford a sewing machine, I did handwork all the time using embroidery floss. I did counted cross stitch, stamped cross stitch, and I loved it. I really, really loved it. And back then, in the early 90s, this was the very cheapest activity you could do. It cost literally pennies on the dollar. And now, floss has gotten very expensive. So over the years, I have been collecting, accumulating, hoarding, whatever you want to call it, floss. If I go out and I see it at thrift stores, people give it to me, and I just put it all in this big box. Okay, so let's see what the back of this says. Read instructions and examine fabric for imperfections before beginning. Ironing may set the ink. Embroider first, then wash and iron. Okay. Oh, send photos of your project to enter our quarterly contest for a chance to win a gift certificate. How cool. I didn't know there was such a thing. All right. The example on this was all done in the same color, which I find boring. Okay. I wanted mine to be multicolor. If you're going to do it all in one color, you need 10 skeins of embroidery floss. They use dark red, $4.98. So I just used anything and everything I had. In fact, when I made this, the big thing back then at Walmart was they had these multicolored bags of floss, which were very thick. And that's what I made this with. Okay. All right. So you're going to need some kind of a hoop. I have a huge, let me move my camera here. Huge quilting hoop over here. I had some of my junk. Okay, so you can put this in a big quilting hoop, or you can use a little hand hoop. You're not gonna believe this. If you ever saw my last video where I had that tabletop hoop, I accidentally threw away the hoop. I am so upset with myself. I saw a loose hoop in the closet, and I thought it belonged to something broken or whatever. And so I threw it away. So now all I have is the bottom stand, and I have not been able to find a hoop to fit it. So now I just have this great big huge honking thing here. This is a Hinterberg quilting hoop. And oh man, it's fabulous to quilt on. I don't know if I would embroider on it just because it's so big, but it does work, okay? So next you're going to need some little embroidery scissors. These are Friskers from Walmart. And you're going to need some embroidery needles. Now you're asking yourself, why do we need embroidery needles? You can use a regular needle if you want to, but the eye on these is typically larger to get all the floss through. So without actually doing it, you're going to thread your floss, and you're going to come up and you're going to start on your cross stitch. I hate to mess up this quilt is my problem here. I guess I can go ahead and do it and then cut it out if I don't like it. Okay, here's some red floss. Let's just go with that. So you're going to cut your floss elbows length. That's what I was always told. You are going to divide it into 3 strands. Right down the center if you're lucky. And go ahead and thread your embroidery needle. So I'm looking, just glancing at this. We have Lazy Daisy Stitch, which I've shown you in my last embroidery video on how to embroider quilt blocks. We have buttonhole stitch, cross stitch, French knot if you so wish to do it. Okay. So you're going to come up on your X. Let me get on here. Tie a knot in the back so you don't lose your thread. And it doesn't matter if you go to the right or to the left, if you're right-handed, left-handed, whatever you want to do. Now, you are going to stay, see if I get my camera a little closer here. Move these hat boxes out of the way. You're going to stay on the X. So I'm going down to the right, over to the left. And of course I lost my thread. I'm telling you, this is what happens when anytime you do anything live. Okay. As I was saying, you're going to go across to the next line and go up. And that's how you make your first stitch. Okay, and then you're going to keep going. Feels weird doing it this angle. And over now. So here's what you want to know. All your stitches should go the same direction. However you start, that is the way you keep going. We also up here have back stitch. So we have back stitch on this little straight line. This is a buttonhole stitch, or you can fake it and make it look like a buttonhole stitch. Cross stitch. Where these little circles were at, I sewed beads on. And lazy daisy and French knot. I hate French knots. I would not ever want to do candle wicking because I despise French knots. So now let me show you again. Here is the package. Jack Dempsey wall quilt to embroider. Here is the seller, and they had more than 12 of these in stock. I mean, they sell these as a living. It wasn't a one-hit wonder. J.R. Perks seller. It is $12.67 on eBay. All right, and then now, let me show you. Here, this is the before of the middle where you could do your back stitch, blanket stitch, so on and so forth. And then here's what I did with mine. This is the finished product. Okay, so it's a very, very, very time consuming, but it was so well worth it. This is beautiful. I would like to buy a quilt rack to hang this on, to have on display all the time. I also added a little bit of ribbon embroidery on here just because I like frou-frou stuff. All right, here's a close-up of some buttons. Every corner looks different. So you don't have to, it doesn't have to be all samey same all the way around, okay? When God makes a flower garden, he doesn't make everything the same color, all right? Or it wouldn't be a flower garden. It'd be a rose garden or whatever. All right, so let me bring my camera back up. Okay, so again, thank you for subscribing. Here's what I need from you. Could you possibly tell me below the videos that you are interested in seeing? I love any aspect of sewing. I like to bake. I like to sew doll clothes, baby clothes. I'm not really good at sewing women's clothes. I can do it as long as it's not anything really difficult. So tell me what you are interested in seeing. The embroidery videos have been off the chart. I don't know why. I don't know if it brings up good memories because we all probably grew up with embroidered items that our grandmothers made, or yeah, I don't know what the secret is. But anyway, please tell me below what you like to see, and I will try to accommodate you. My new endeavor on Cottage Designs by Erin on Etsy is I'm going to start sewing, excuse me, gotta sneeze, historical doll clothing for the American Girl dolls. So I bought Grace Marie, and she is a 1700s doll and needs colonial clothing, and I'm really looking forward to that endeavor. And so what my daughter was telling me, what my daughter collected all the American Girls, the original set, when she was a little girl. And so we have the first 10 or 12. And I noticed that on Etsy, all of a sudden, I started seeing these American Girl doll clothes. Well, I thought it was a dead market. I didn't realize what was happening. She said, Mom, she said, the Pleasant Company was bought out by Mattel. And now that Mattel has taken it over, they no longer make the beautiful wooden original furniture. They no longer make the historically accurate costumes. And so women are wanting costumes to go with their era doll. And so that's what I hope to get into next. So stop back by for more because I will have new videos in the future and I have all kinds of quilting ideas as well. Thank you.